if the 2 days that mean most to you in positive and negative ways is you can't wait until it's Friday so you don't have to work for 2 days. And then if Monday is your most hated day because you're going back to work, make a change, right? All right. Hello and welcome to episode 110 of KT Confidential, the real estate podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Ariel Cremendi. My partner here is Adrian Trott.
Welcome to the show, everybody.
Happy episode 110.
I feel like we should put on a radio voice more often.
Oh, hello. Welcome to KT Confidential, the real estate podcast.
What's it called where people whisper in your ear and the microphone?
ASMR.
Yeah.
You will listen to me while you're in bed.
Coincidentally, I do anyways.
Today, I'm excited actually for today's episode. And it's something that I've been wanting to get out there into the public more. And that's...
This is Ariel's coming out speech.
It's sharing our wisdom, our experience, our knowledge, and, being an open book to those people that have always said, I've thought about being in real estate. I've thought about becoming a realtor, or I'm thinking about becoming a realtor, or I am taking my real estate courses. What is going to be my next avenue? So anybody that's thought of being a realtor that isn't currently, and even for those of you that are realtors and maybe new to the business, we might throw some good stuff at you in this podcast. So if you've ever thought about it, or you're looking for a great career or a career change, if you want to have a business where you're self-employed, whatever, check. You need to listen to this full podcast.
Give you some insight
and share it. If you're listening to this podcast and you know somebody, you're a dick.
Yes. I mean, there's so many people out there that have probably contemplated the idea, especially now with all HGTV shows and Love It or Listed, and they glamorize it. So it's something that people have thought about, and it is fun. It's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding. So the question is it for you?
Well, but it's the reason we came up with this topic is because it was a discussion that I had with a friend of mine this morning that is no longer employed and has been thinking about becoming a realtor for quite some time. And this is something that people often chat with me about. Like, I can't believe the amount of people throughout the year that will say, oh, I thought about being a realtor, but then I did this instead. Or I started the courses, but never finished them. Or, it's something that's
lots
always...
of people do that.
It's something that's always interested me. I'm always on realtor.ca. I love watching HGTV shows, et cetera, et cetera. So I think a lot of people don't do it because they don't have proper insight, proper guidance. They don't know where to go, where to start. They're afraid.
I was going to say, I think that's the number one thing. Change. People don't like change. They're in their 9-to-5 salaried job, and they have a budget and they have a family responsibility. It's a very scary thought.
So for those of you that don't know, Adrian and I quit our jobs about 10 years ago. We were senior managers for a large automotive group in Milton. We had been with that organization for a number of years, long time, and had a great compensation plan with a salary, or I had salary, you didn't. Salary, commission, bonus structure. We were the two highest paid individuals in the company. We had a car, gas, insurance, lots of perks, benefits, dental plan, the whole bit. And
my teeth have gone to shit since we got into real estate.
We left it to start from scratch with nothing.
That's right.
And I know I'm sure your family did too, but my family, anybody that was super close to me at that time, looked at me and said, "Are you nuts?"
Yeah.
Like, you have it so well. People would dream of having that kind of job and that kind of career. And you worked so hard the last 12 years in the automotive business. Why are you going to leave it to start from scratch?
Yeah. Well, what I think a
And
lot of people don't see is they don't, and that's kind of what, is good to talk about things is from the outside looking in, people have their perception, and we did well according to most people. They would probably categorize us as being successful at what we did, but I was miserable. I mean, it affected me emotionally and physically. I remember I was so unhappy when I had a client that I had to work with. I would get angry, and that's how I made a living. So I knew at that point it was time for a change.
I said this to you and Joanna this morning in our creative meeting, that I used to wake up hating the day.
Or imagine
I,
like the last day or two of a vacation or the weekend. It was the
if
worst.
if the 2 days that mean most to you in positive and negative ways is you can't wait for Friday, you can't wait until it's Friday so you don't have to work for 2 days.
Or except,
And
yeah.
then if Monday is your most hated day because you're going back to work, make a change, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I used to drag my ass to work. I used to smash the snooze button several times. Oftentimes I wouldn't even get to work on time. But if I was, it was like maybe a minute or two before my 9 o'clock shift started. And now, 10 years later, I'm still loving my job. I look forward to the day. I look forward to going to work. And I'm up at 5 o'clock every morning. And I start working within about 45 minutes after I wake up. I do a little bit of stretching, have a coffee, do my reading on Apple News, and start my day at 5:45. By the time the rest of the family is up and about at around 7:30, 8 o'clock, I've already accomplished a lot, and I love that feeling. And I never got that feeling working in any other job that I had. So part of my passion and part of why I want to talk about this is to make the unknown known for those people that are thinking that they'd like, even if they want to try it, because a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm going to try it."
Yeah. But even on a bigger, on a macro scale, encouraging people to be more inclined to pursue something different, whatever that is. I think that's really important because I think people need a bit of motivation to make changes in their life, whether it's to get into real estate, which we will be specifically referring to, or whatever, starting
Hey,
your own.
if your favorite thing is baking cookies every night and you're selling them as a side hustle, maybe your full-time gig should be baking cookies and
Yes.
start a cookie business. I don't know. I don't care. Follow your passion and the rest will follow, right?
Yeah.
But yes, let's talk about real estate. So, do you want to start with the path, the advice, or the experience?
It's a very good question. Well, maybe we've talked about it before, but just to give, I think, what would you think are some of the biggest struggles with making that transition? Would think financially, as finances are probably one of the greatest. The uncertainty of what expectations to have in terms of realistically how much money they're going to have coming in and how much they need to save. One of the things that made me comfortable with it at the end was we had moved, and in the process, I held back, I don't remember how much, 50 grand or something like that from the proceeds of my sale, and put it into savings so that I had money set aside to get by. Because I knew inevitably, it's not inevitably, it's very unlikely you're going to have instant income when making that transition. So I had money put aside,
I
and
don't
that
know
helped.
if I will necessarily agree or disagree with that statement, because in one hand, yeah, you need to be able to support yourself and your family.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I don't want anybody coming into this business and having a fallback, right?
Well, that's
Like,
not a fallback. That's
it's,
just a reserve.
yeah.
I mean, it's. I understand where you're coming
If
from. I think
if
you have
if you
two.
come into this business broke, that's that, or at least that's how your mindset has to be, is that you're fucking broke coming into this business, and you're going to hustle, and you are going to work your ass off. So that 50 grand, that nest egg, is never touched. So
Right.
maybe put it in a GIC or something, that it's there and you can redeem it if absolutely necessary, but do not rely on it. Don't touch it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and that's
I
very much my mentality. I understand that the concept, and that is how I thought. So I had it there, which made me feel a little bit comfortable, but I did not want to touch it. So
so let's
that
just
was
talk. Let's just talk about expected expenses.
Yeah.
So you've got your courses, which are now 5 courses through Humber College. Once you complete those courses, you do have to be a member of a real estate board. Oftentimes, like if you're on our team, you do have to be a member of 2 boards, which give you access to pretty much all of Ontario now. And then you're going to have some startup costs, like some teams have a startup cost, some brokerages have a startup cost, or desk fees or monthly fees that you're going to pay until you prove your success and achieve a certain level of that success. You're
Let's
going to
just
want
start it off with the very basic fees. You've got the course, board, insurance, and brokerage potentially. I don't know exactly where that's going to be. Everyone's going to be a bit different, but last time I spoke with a newer agent, it was in the range of $13,000.
yeah, I was going to say about 10,
Yeah,
but
it's
it
more than 10 for sure.
might be a bit higher.
Yeah.
So call it 15. I always like to round up when budgeting. You're going to need 15 grand just to basically say I'm a realtor, and give you the ability to go and print some business cards if you choose to do that. So 15 grand cost you right away.
With business cards, that was funny.
Yeah. Now let's say, first of all, my advice, I'll throw some advice in there. For the love of God, don't do it on your own. Join a team. Teams are A good team is going to be structured to help you along the way in so many ways, but also have an established brand, established business that you wouldn't be able to do on your own for a very long time. And you certainly don't have the resources. You certainly wouldn't have the financial ability. And quite frankly, going into a listing presentation or a buyer presentation when you're up against a higher profile team that has all these services and features and all that, you won't win that client unless it's somebody that just happens to really, really like you. So
Or
I
you're
think,
an exceptional salesperson.
yep, could be. But if you're an exceptional salesperson on a good team, you'll be successful right away.
Yes.
Versus having to wait until your client base builds and people finally trust you. Because when you make that shift and you let your sphere of influence know, which is the first thing you'll do as a realtor, you're contacting friends, family, past colleagues, and you're letting them know, hey, folks, now I'm a realtor. And if you or anybody you know is thinking about buying or selling real estate, please keep me in mind. They're going to be really hesitant to forward you any kind of referrals or give you any kind of business, because you're new and you don't fucking know what you're doing.
You've got to prove yourself.
Exactly.
The
So
people
now,
that you expect to be the most reliable for business are going to be the ones that don't give it to you right away.
Mm-hmm.
And rightfully so.
100%.
They don't want to risk their relationship with you for such a large transaction when you haven't proven that you're capable. Some
Well,
people may, but don't
it's
be offended.
it's like I'll give you an example in a different manner. That let's just say one of your friends who is a office clerk of some kind, an administrator, calls you up and says, "Hey, Adrian, I just got my technician license to work on luxury uh, luxury cars. Can can I do your next brake change?"
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So
Or a new carpenter or somebody, and you're doing a big reno, and they're trying to get the job of doing your whole house.
right, you're gonna say, "Hey, show me what you've done," or
Yeah.
get involved with the Audi dealership and go through their training program, and then we'll talk or whatever.
Yeah.
No different in real estate. So just because you go through those courses, by the way, those courses, and it may or may not be different because now it just has been taken over by Humber College and is administered a little bit differently. But reality is those courses and what actually happens on the streets, two totally different things. Yes,
Well,
you got to know.
school in general generally does not set you up for success.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they're teaching you the ins and outs of the legalities and ethical stuff that you got to follow and very, very basic stuff, but needed. So I'm not saying it's not needed. You learn a lot in those courses, but actually working as a realtor day to day is very different than what you're going to just learn in the books. There is still a lot of learning to do, and there is a lot of um, just experiential learning, right? Like you have to actually get your hands dirty to learn certain things.
Well, that's why it's extremely important. If I mean, teams obviously, not obviously, but teams being on a team will help with that. But also, at a minimum, being very particular about the brokerage you sign up with to find one that has a very supportive management and training team, because heading into it, you will have a ton of questions, whether it's just paperwork wise or processes and best practices, stuff like that. It's very important to have supportive people behind you.
It's a very lonely business if you're alone,
Yes.
and you'll be searching for a lot of answers, right down to let's say you're taking a client and you show them a property you're showing your first client a home. You will be shaking in your boots when you're drafting that first offer.
Yeah.
And certainly in this market, when your offer is probably going to be competing against other offers, I can only imagine what a new realtor would feel like, right? So you need to have somebody holding your hand for the first while, and so that's great advice. So cost you 15 grand to get started. You want to find a good brokerage. We do recommend looking hard at joining a team. Um, Finding the right fit, I think, is really important because you want to enjoy the people that you're working with, whether you're doing it solo and part of the brokerage, or whether you're doing it as a part with coming on board as with a team. You're going to be working with those people on a day-to-day basis, and you get to choose in some capacity who those people are, right?
Yeah. Well, I
So
would look at it as though you're not necessarily being interviewed for a position, but you are interviewing for a position because you need to make sure it's a good fit for you. And really, realistically, most brokerages will take anyone they can get because they're just, the more people they have working behind the scenes for them, the more likely they are generating additional income. So you need to be very, very particular about that interview process and asking the right questions and meeting the right people and speaking with existing people that are already on the team or already with the brokerage.
What do you think some of the fears are that people have? Like, why?
I think the biggest fear is always going to surround the uncertainty of success and income, right? So realistically, let's maybe be good to talk about what sort of expectations they should have about income and how long it takes to get paid. That's often what's going to happen is people are going to be like, okay, I want to get into this, but how much money am I going to make, and when am I going to see that money? It can be a very long process before you start to get income. I mean, I sent a message to the team today about a particular person I've been working with for 3 years now, going just occasionally emailing, talking via text and phone and stuff like that. And now it's just starting to come together and they're ready to buy and sell a house. And that was a 3 year process. So it's no wonder the vast majority of, or a huge percentage of real estate agents fall off after the first year because they have to be very patient
Well,
and persistent.
yeah, you know, the stat is 50% of realtors in their first year do not renew their license the following year. Like they basically drop out of real
Right.
estate. So only 50% make it to year number 2. But I think the problem is that they weren't planning accordingly and didn't have a business plan. Whether you're part of a team or you're doing it individually, my biggest recommendation is to have a proper business plan. Like, you're self-employed. You are starting a business.
Yeah.
It's the greatest business in the world because you can, first of all, you'll never be without employment because, to your point, there's always a brokerage willing to take you on. Always. You'll find work anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. If you're a realtor, you could move to Australia and find a job. It is probably the only white collar career that you can set up shop anywhere and be successful. As long as you speak the language of
Sales in general is very much the same. Whatever the product, like we were selling cars, you can go to a dealership anywhere. But I think you can't just come into the industry and be like, all right, I'm licensed, I've got my insurance, I'm registered now. I can. Right, where's the business? You have to come in with a plan, like you're saying. You need to figure out what who is your demographic that you're going to target. How are you going to target them? What sort of marketing initiatives will you do? What frequency is it going to be? You need to have structure and plans in place in order to make sure you have something to do. Otherwise, you're just going to twiddle your thumbs. Like going from a structured salaried job to being self-employed in any industry is not for everyone because they need that guidance. And that's where the team comes in too. For people that aren't as self-motivated and disciplined, the team is there to support you. So
there's a lot of teams though that have zero guidance for their, like, there's a lot of turnover on a lot of teams.
Yes.
And that's because there is no structure. There are no systems in place. There's no brand awareness. There's no brand. There's, poor marketing, poor advertising. So you could just as easily end up in a bad team too.
Yeah, I've heard stories of that for sure.
Oh, 100%. But it's all a commitment, right? Like right down from the beginning and saying, I don't know what the stat is, but I know a bunch of people that started their real estate courses and never finished.
Yeah.
A ton of people I've talked to over the last 10 years, they started their courses and somewhere along the way, either it was life change or, for the most part, I don't think they had the motivation to actually do it and got fucking lazy.
Yeah.
And it'll be telling. It'll be telling right there in the courses. If you find a way, like we were working our full-time jobs, And in any spare time we had, we were doing the courses, and we got them done, like just in the nick of time, but we got them done. And so, if you can make that commitment and say, I'm going to do it, I'm going to be good at this, I'm going to get the courses done, I'm going to get licensed, I'm going to invest that 15 grand, then you're all in. Then you're all in. But you have to make that decision early in the process. Don't be wishy-washy about it, because if you're all in, you go all in.
You know what people need to do to help keep themselves motivated and learn a shit ton of information so that when they are ready to go, they are hitting the road running, is they need to go work for a team in some other capacity, even if it's for free. Go work for a team, follow people around, listen to what they're saying, join meetings, pick up and drop off checks, prepare paperwork, familiarize yourself with everything you
Well, there won't be
possibly
any more
can.
picking up and dropping off checks, I hope.
No, yeah. No, but whatever you can do, I think you need to surround yourself with people that are
be an intern.
Yeah, for sure.
Be an intern. You got a few hours on a Saturday, offer it up to a good realtor or a good real estate team, and say, hey, I'm thinking, we've had those inquiries. We've had a number of people inquire and say, working on, we're interviewing somebody this week. So that's good advice. That makes a lot of sense. Like, get your feet wet.
I think that's the best advice that I can think of, is to get involved very early, because you don't want to just get licensed and expect to be able to be successful. You need to be doing your courses, getting your feet wet as much as you can well in advance.
You need to have goals, though. You need to set deadlines for those goals. So if your goal is you've got 5 courses to complete, set a deadline for yourself and say, okay, by January 31st, I'm going to be done course 1. By February 28th, I'm going to be done course 2, blah, blah, blah. And by September 1st, I am going to have my new home with a brokerage. So that means in July, I'm going to go out and interview some brokerages and some teams or whatever. Have that documented and put it in front of you. Put it right up where you're going to see it every day. Put it on your bathroom mirror so you don't forget about it, and hold yourself accountable to it. I think that's the biggest thing that people miss, is that I started, but I didn't follow through with it. And why?
Yeah.
And it's a shame, because I think there's a lot of good people that think about that and should be in the industry, but they don't, because they're chicken shit, or they're just too lazy and no guidance in their own.
I mean, the world needs all different types of people. If you're not cut out for being self-employed and being disciplined and, having that, if you just don't have that in you, some people just don't have it and realize they don't want it. They want the structure and peace of mind of a job. And that's, not
well,
in
that's
line.
certainly not in the real estate industry.
No.
We had 2 months in 2020 where we were basically shut down and had no income, right?
Yeah.
So,
many people were, and in many industries, many people were laid off.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. But when we couldn't claim anything, right?
No.
Because you're self-employed. We still had a little income trickling in from other transactions, and we had to help a few people that we already committed to. Otherwise, they would have been homeless. But you got those peaks and the valleys, right? You've got months that you might sell a few homes, and then you might have several months where you don't sell shit. As time goes on, that kind of balances out and evens out with time from just building a database and getting repeat customers and customers referred to you or clients referred to you. So that's part of it, is that you just have to. You're on your own. It's a lonely career, especially if you're on your own. But there's a lot to it. There is a lot to it. So you got to be fully committed. It may or may not be for you. What I say to people, though, is if you're thinking about it and you've gone to the steps of working through that motion in your head, you got to try it. You got to try it. You're not doing yourself any service if you don't try it. Because the one thing I'll tell you, and I don't know if you would say the same thing, even though we did it. How old were we when we started our courses? In our late 20s?
Would have been, yeah.
Yeah, we were in our late 20s. And even so, a lot of people would say, oh, that was pretty young to get into real estate. I wish I would have done it sooner.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right. And a lot of successful realtors say that. Now, a lot of people ask, what can I expect to be doing on a day-to-day basis as a realtor?
Yeah, I think that's where the business plan comes in quite a bit, because you need to figure out, how are you networking? How are you building a database of people you can try to solicit business from? How do you connect with people, get your name out there? It could be door knocking, it could be flyers, it could be social media. Everybody's going to have something that they're more drawn to. Lots of things work. So you got to figure out, what's your niche. Are you targeting a specific type of person or a specific area, a specific type of home? And how do you connect with those people?
Well, it's like, you see realtors on the back of a bus. You'll never see us on the back of a bus, but the people that do advertise on the back of the bus, if you ask them, they'll probably say it works and it gets me business. People comment it on
And
all the
I'm sure it
time.
does. I'm sure it does.
Yeah, they always ask about my dog or whatever, right? I hate that ad, by the way. So here's my thought on as a new realtor, where a lot of realtors struggle. You're self-employed, you have nobody holding you accountable. You have to hold yourself accountable. It's really easy to start your day at 10 o'clock in your jammies and end your day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon because you want to have a little, afternoon nap, or your friend Billy comes over with a 2-4 and decide, oh, let's just have a few drinks, or your girlfriend calls you and say you want to go out for coffee. Hey, networking is great, but if you don't have a plan for your day and it's not structured, so 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, I'm doing this. 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, I'm doing this. 10:15, I've got to post this. 10:30, I got to write this blog. Whatever. Got to follow up from 10 to 12. From 12 to 1, I got to make X amount of calls. And it's all documented and it's planned. If you do that and you stick to it, you'll be successful.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest things for me is, when getting out of the automotive industry, which we invested so much time into, and we were confined to our little cubicles or whatever, the building we worked in, we didn't really have much time to get out. I didn't feel like I did anyway. So when we made that transition,
never got out.
No, when we made that transition, one of the things I looked forward to was being able to get out more and hang out with friends. And I use that social networking opportunity to meet more people and build my database of acquaintances and friends. And I got a ton of business from that. But I also went into with the mindset that, okay, I'm going to meet this new person. It was not natural for me to be very social, really. Like, I was not good at walking up to people and chatting. So having that atmosphere where I was in a group of a few people I knew, and then a couple new people into the circle at that particular outing, wherever it was much easier for me to engage with people. But I would also make a note of getting their contact info and then following up, send them a text, say, hey, it was nice to meet you yesterday, whatever. And then you go to another event. You get to meet these people more often than once, and they get to know what you do for a living. And then all of a sudden they refer business to you. And for me, that worked really well. And it was fun. I really enjoyed it, which makes it, obviously that much better.
Well, and different people will have different things, right? Like if you are a fan of hockey, you love hockey,
Right.
you like playing hockey, maybe you join a team and that's your, your way of being social. But that's a big component to being a good realtor, is that you do have to be a bit of a social butterfly. And that can be on social media too. Like you look at Joanna, who's currently taking her courses to become a realtor on our team. She's got a big following on social media. And already a lot of her followers are reaching out to her
Yeah.
and saying, when the time comes, we're certainly going to look to you for helping us.
Yeah.
I look at your sister-in-law, right? Erin. I think she's done a great job of building her social platforms for their 2 cottage properties, which are Airbnb properties. And so she's leveraged that in her real estate career. She's been a realtor now for about a year, I think. And she's getting customers contacting her from her followers of those properties that she uses as Airbnbs, and they're saying, "Well, can you help us buy a cottage?
Tons
Because
of
we
business
love
from
what."
it.
Tons of business from it. So it doesn't have to be necessarily in person, which is great, especially during everything that's going on with the pandemic. But you have to be able to be social in some capacity and be good at it.
Yeah.
If you are the type of person that wants to be alone all the time and doesn't like talking to people, and you're not a social butterfly, you don't like to be on social media, you like to be behind a wall kind of thing, then real estate is probably not for you. But
I disagree with that. I think then you adapt and you find ways to connect with people. I think if you're not overly
that's
social,
what I'm saying. You have to be able to be that person. You have to adapt.
Yeah, no. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I think introverts can be very successful. It's a matter of finding the right means to connect with people. So if you're an introvert, then blogging would be very effective. Writing regular blogs, starting a blog and advertising it effectively, sending flyers and newsletters, those things would work very well for you because, if you're not comfortable getting in those social environments, you don't need to. There's other ways of connecting with people.
Those are ways that will get you leads.
Yes.
They're not necessarily going to be able to convert. You have to be a social person in this business. So I agree with you. Yes, introverts can be very successful in terms of setting up their business plan, sticking to it, and generating leads that way. But you got to get outside of your comfort zone if you are that type of person, because you are going to meet face to face with people and need to meet face to face with people on a regular basis. How would an introvert?
That's very different, though. That's very different. That's you're taking somebody from.
How about open houses?
It's very different. It's very different because I'm very introverted and I'm very much a homebody. Like I'm not very good at meeting people. But when you're in a structured setting where you're going in with a specific purpose, like when you're at a open house, you're there for a specific reason. It's easy to engage in conversation with people, much easier than just going to a party, or it's very different. So introverted people can be very successful in this. They just have to go about connecting with people in a different way. But if once you get that lead and you're going to their house to do a listing presentation or whatever, home valuation or buyer presentation, whatever, introverts can be very effective at that because they're going in with a mission. They know what they're doing. They know more or less what they're saying, and they can do well.
At the end of the day, anybody can do well in real estate.
Yeah.
But you have to have certain attributes that either will make you successful or that you're willing to change and adapt to make you successful.
Well, and it depends on what your definition of success is. Like if somebody wants to make $100K a year versus
my version of success is whatever your version of success is.
That's right. That's my
point. I don't
know.
Yeah, to me, making $100K a year is not successful. But to somebody else, it might be. But it might not even be monetary. Your version of success might be to be able to wake up in the morning and not have a boss.
Right.
To be able to wake up in the morning and spend from 9 to 11 with your children because that's what you want to fucking do. So everybody has their own version of success. Real estate can bring you that success.
Right. So I think what's more important is I think a lot of people come into this because they see real estate agents driving around in fancy cars and they see it as an easy way to get money. And I think that's a very wrong perception because one, I bet a lot of those real estate agents cannot afford the cars they're driving. They just bought them.
Are you talking about me now?
No, you can afford yours. But a lot of those people, they buy them because they feel like that's the perception they have to portray. But I didn't buy a new car for a long time, and you made fun of me for it. But
I did.
I think if you're coming, I think there's so many levels of that you could accomplish in this. So if you want to be very successful in this, and by very successful I mean, I'm talking monetary. If you want to make a lot of money doing this, you have to be, like you're saying, you have to be very disciplined. You have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to be persistent and hardworking and put in the hours and network, et cetera, et cetera. So depending on what you put in, you will get out of it.
100%. And where we see where people fail is that they don't have that commitment. They don't have the proper plan. They don't stick to it. They're not consistent with it. And when you're putting in 20, 30, even 40 hours a week, actually, I'll correct myself because it's not necessarily the time, it's what you're doing with your time.
Yeah.
You could be very successful working in this business 25 hours a week if you're just a super multitasker and you've delegated some stuff out for other people to do for you or whatever. But you have to have a proper plan and stick to it and have that hunger and that hustle. You have to. But I also think people generally feel that realtors make a lot of money, and that's why they want to get into the business. A lot of people just think, "Oh, I can make 100 grand a year by working 20 hours a week." No, you can't. There's a lot of costs involved. A ton of costs involved.
Yeah, more so nowadays than before. And going forward, it will become even greater. Like if you're not providing insane amounts of value, like staging, et cetera, you will get eaten alive.
It's not even. It's well beyond staging.
No, I know.
And I think about our overhead, our fixed costs every month. Things like the office I'm sitting in. Our KT studio on Main Street, that's a cost. But what about all the things that are in the office, like the chair I'm sitting in, the internet that's connecting me right now?
Well, that's irrelevant because if you get somebody coming in, they can work from home. You don't need that stuff.
Okay, fine. What about those flyers you want to print?
Right.
What about, the laptop that you're going to work from or the iPad that you're going to show your presentation on? Those are costs. Your gas, your vehicle. Maybe you need some new clothes. Maybe you want to have different marketing and advertising campaigns, which is very expensive nowadays.
The gas in your car for driving buyers around for days on end.
Yes. And are you buying those clients any gifts? Are you taking them for dinners to establish relationships? Are you, there's so many line items in terms of expenses. And real estate commissions, they're going up because of the value in homes going up, but you only get paid once that deal closes. And then the franchise is going to take a cut. Your team is going to take a cut. Then you've got all of your expenses that come off of that. You're left with a much, much smaller cut. And your seller, as an example, if you listed a property, they're going to think, oh, well, I just paid out so many thousands of dollars. And now Adrian is rich. He made a lot of money on me this month. Well, no, Mr. Seller. Half of that went to the cooperating brokerage, and then I had to pay all of my expenses out of that. Then I had to pay taxes on the full amount that I brought in. I'm left with X amount, which is much, 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 much smaller than the amount that the seller paid out. So, but people don't.
And then you might get a deal like we just had one in particular that was on the market longer than usual. We spent $10,000 in staging. I think the commission on that will be about 16,000 before any deductions.
I did the
We're going
math
to lose
on.
money on it.
I did the math on that property, and even not taking into consideration an hourly rate that I would normally apply in considering costs. So what I mean by that, your time aside, any of our other employees that had time invested into the property, I assign a value to it, right?
Yeah,
so if Jennifer, who's paid a salary, if she invested 10 hours of her time throughout that listing period, I'll assign how much monetary value that was to the cost of that property. And we are losing money on that property.
Yeah, and that happens. I mean, it's rare, but there's deals that don't come together. Like the listing you put up that for whatever reason, the seller may decide to change their mind. Maybe they had unrealistic expectations of price. But at the end of the day, you have to realize too that you are investing money into the listing. You're investing time, and you are paid the length of the realistically. Once you get the listing, you probably get paid within about 90 days, 90 to 120 days between selling it. I mean, depending on your market too. Like my sister-in-law, Erin, up in Huntsville, she'll sell a house and it closes in 30 days because the cottage market is very different. The people want to move in quicker, but primary residences...
And they are often sold as seen, so all the furniture and everything stays, so you're not packing up anything.
Exactly, close in a couple of weeks.
Belongings.
Yeah. Whereas primary residences, if you're focusing on residential real estate, that's the bulk of your business. That's the time frame from when you list it. Give yourself 30 to 60 days to sell it, and then 30 to 60 days to close on it, and that's when you get paid.
And well, even when you're working with a buyer, it's probably going to take you 30, 60 days to find the home, and then plus your closing time once you have that deal. So if you start working with somebody right now, you're still not getting paid for 3 to 4 months.
Right. But the nice thing and the peace of mind and what you can look forward to is as you do it, you get more transactions in the industry slang of pipeline, sales slang, but you build up a database of people. You have deals starting to close later on, and it becomes more consistent. So the hard part and the reason people give up in that first year is because there's very little consistency. But if you can get through year 1, year 2, year 3, get to year 5, when you start to get a lot of repeat clients and more referrals, it becomes far more consistent, and your efforts will pay off.
I think I've said this probably 100 times this year, but my goal for all of our realtors when they're new to the team is to get them to 100 clients as soon as they can.
Yeah.
And I don't put a timeline on that because for everybody, it's going to be different. Some people might sell 5 homes in their first year. Some might sell 25 homes. We have a pretty good track record with our realtors, so we can gauge and plan pretty accurately what it's going to look like. But again, that's having that proper plan in place. I think a lot of people wonder what is realistic in terms of expectations for income. So our team aside, let's just say somebody's getting their license right now. They're going through their courses. Or they're thinking about signing up for their courses. And we can give our own opinion. What is your opinion in terms of...
I don't think you can give an opinion. I think it's so dependent on the person. It could be $50,000 a year. It could be 20. It could be 200. It depends. If you get a very successful salesperson that already has a big database of clients from another industry that they can tap into and a big social media presence, they could kill it. If they're willing to work 12 to 14 hours a day consistently every 7 days a week, they could make a lot of freaking money.
Yeah, I was talking to a realtor that first full year.
Yeah.
So let's call it 4 or 5 months into the business.
Yeah.
The next 12 calendar months
Yeah.
made $250,000 after expenses
It's huge.
before tax. So net before tax.
Yeah.
250 grand in the first full calendar year after splits and all the fees and expenses before tax.
Yeah. So I think that's the potential and even more, but it depends on your degree of
It's
commitment.
unlimited.
It
It's
depends on what you
unlimited.
want. If you don't want that, then that's fine too.
I've talked to a lot of realtors that didn't sell shit in their first 12 months, not a single deal in their first 12 calendar months, or just a few leases, or just one transaction. So yes, there is no answer to that. So anybody that asks me what can I expect to make in my first year, you got to have a plan. Like if you're on our team, I'm going to have a plan for you, and it's going to say here's what you will make this year, and it will come pretty close as long as you are being consistent with the daily tasks to get you there.
Yeah.
Right. If looking back, if you were to just start now, knowing what you know, would you have changed anything in the beginning?
Well, like you said earlier, would have started much sooner.
Aside from that,
I think if someone is inclined and adept to using social media, I would leverage that. I think we probably didn't jump on soon enough, even though we were one of the early adopters of it. I think we could have done that more effectively, much quicker. I think people need to be I don't know how to convey it, but they need to be able to have the vision to see where the market is going and how the industries are shifting, and the various mediums that are very effective for marketing purposes, and how to connect with people, especially social media, finding the next big platform, getting on it early, and being persistent with it, and consistently posting and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say something along those lines.
Just to touch on what you said, though, you got to know who your target demographic is, right? So, like, if you're entering the business as a 55-year-old, and your business plan says your demographic is going to be people that are seniors and looking to downsize, you might not want to be using TikTok.
I disagree. Because those seniors kids who are 30 to 40 to 50 are actually
it's funny. It's funny you're saying that, because I had this discussion with Steve Bruman this past week, because he has a senior accredited status.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him just about that the people that are going to look for the realtor for their is probably like the children or the grandchildren for their parents or grandparents, right? So that
and the ages on these various platforms is increasing so fast. It's unbelievable if you look at the stats.
All right. Well, if your target demographic is 21 to 30-year-olds, you don't want to put an ad in a paper, okay?
That's right. I think
is that better?
The reverse is probably more accurate. Yes.
Yes. If I had to change anything,
I didn't ask you.
All right. Okay. So I'll ask you another question.
No. So Ariel, if there was one thing you could think of that you would have changed in the way that you got into the business, what would it be?
Well, our situation was a bit different, but let's just say, if I started today as an individual realtor, I would have had better structure in my day.
Yes.
And have been holding myself accountable to that every single day. Because what I found was, I went from working 45, 50 hours a week in an office environment and having that consistent paycheck coming at me, and just knowing what my day was, same boring Groundhog Day shit every day that made me miserable. And I felt freedom. I would make myself a beautiful breakfast and spend time making a nice lunch. And, if I felt like going for an hour walk, I would just go for an hour walk.
Yeah.
It didn't take me too long to figure out that ain't going to cut it, because there's nobody paying my bills. There's no money coming in unless I sell a home. And I'm not going to sell a home unless I have a client. And I'm not going to get a client unless I do some sort of income producing activity.
Yeah.
And unless it's in my calendar and structured every day, I'll probably forget about it or be lazy about it.
Well, one of the big things, you do a lot of the coaching with the team. So one of the big things you enforce is the importance of filling your calendar, making sure it's always full.
Yeah. I know what your day is going to look like the day before you start it.
Yeah. So one of the aspects of that is just, which I think specifically in this year, I think people have adapted quickly and can probably make the transition easier, is going from the office environment or wherever you were working, whatever industry that was, whatever your day looked like, wherever you were, to being in your home. If that's where you want to be working versus in the team office or wherever, I think now people can probably transition because people are doing that already. They're already working from home. So they have those distractions that they've hopefully learned how to avoid. Like when I first got when we first got started and, I was working from my office upstairs, I'd be like, oh, I want a coffee, go downstairs. An hour later, you're cleaning the kitchen because it was a mess and you still haven't made your coffee. So that was a challenge for me in the beginning.
Yeah. And it's a challenge for a lot of realtors, even seasoned realtors and successful realtors, is staying course.
Yes.
And not taking for granted that it is a job. And even though you're not paid by the hour or not paid a salary,
yeah,
you are your own boss and you have to act as it.
Yeah.
And hold yourself accountable. And that's my biggest advice to anybody that's really getting into the business, is learn as much as you can in the early going, as early as you can, whether that's being an intern or taking a bunch of courses online, or obviously you're not attending events right now, but there are a bunch of real estate events that you can attend. There's a bunch of Facebook groups you can become a member of. There's tons of content on YouTube.
One thing I'm a big advocate of is looking for education from events and training and stuff like that, is venturing outside of real estate and looking at other more generic business and sales oriented things, because you can pull a lot of really great creative ideas from other industries into real estate and adapt them to your business.
Well, one of the great books that I'm reading right now is, I'll tell you the title of it. It's called Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as If Your Life Depended on It. Written by Chris Voss. And he was an member of the FBI, and was responsible for negotiating in situations where there was
hostage negotiation,
hostage situations.
Never split the difference in that industry. Give me half. Give me half.
Give me your left arm.
Yeah.
So you have to educate yourself on a regular basis, but you gotta familiarize yourself with the industry, get as much education as you can, as quick as you can, and find yourself a good home. Go in it 100%. Don't do it half-assed. Don't do it part-time. Jump in. Have a good plan in place. Have it documented. Know what you are going to do. Know who you are going to target, and have a plan in place to make all of those things work and happen, and stick to it, and don't stop, even if it's not working in the beginning right away. If it's not coming together in the first 2, 3, 4, 5 months, don't take your foot off the gas pedal. because as soon as you do, you're going to end up like 50% of the realtors that drop out in the first year and give up and say, this wasn't for me. But
there you have it.
There's some advice. If you have listened to us up until now, that means
God help you. God help you.
Yeah. May you have a wonderful life. No, that tells me that you have some interest in becoming a realtor, or in some capacity have thought about it.
And God help you. God help you.
Or maybe you are taking your courses, or maybe you're new to the industry. Whatever it is, if you do have any questions, I'm going to have Ian throw out my cell phone number and my email address in the video anyway, and we'll add it to the comments in the podcast. Shoot me a text or call me directly. It's 647-464-0957. That's my personal cell phone number. If you want to chat about the industry, or you need some advice, you need some guidance, I'm happy to do that. I do coach our team members, and have been through possibly every situation that you could be in this industry. And I'm happy to lend my advice. I'm an open book nowadays, and I'm at a point in our business where I've not been selling as much, but focusing now on helping others grow within the team, and helping the team grow from a business standpoint. And I'm quite enjoying it. And I'm happy to offer my 2 cents if you so wish. So there's my value proposition for this podcast, is offering up some free advice to those of you that want it.
That's it. If you've made it this far, like and subscribe. We post these every Monday, always offering our best advice to various things, whether it's becoming a realtor or selling real estate or buying real estate. Subscribe.
ktconfidential.ca to watch the video on YouTube, and we stream wherever you listen to your podcasts. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching episode 110 of KT Confidential, and we'll see you next week.
Ciao.